Hey folks, Cam Rogers here for Chat Sports. We have Brent Corobotiuc on the line right now, head risk manager at BetDSI. Brent, appreciate the time, sir. A lot to discuss here. Week 1 of the NFL season in the books, and I think we got to start things off with overreactions. Where is all the action going down right now? For example, Tampa Bay stunning New Orleans a week ago. Where are you seeing all of the money happening at this juncture?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like you look at week 1, and there's obviously some interesting games like Tampa Bay, as you touched on. As good as a team like Tampa Bay looked, you're also looking at a team like New Orleans, and like how bad was that defense? I mean, it's not like they've ever had like a great defense, but I mean, they gave up a ton of points. They made Fitzpatrick look like Fitz magic. I mean, he was just phenomenal out there. And I'm sure no one started him in fantasy football, but he would have been a stud for sure. Definitely, like first week, the Jets in Detroit is one of those games that it was absolutely fantastic from a sportsbook point of view. We needed the Jets for everything pretty much, and they came through. And everyone was, with the coaching changes and all that kind of stuff. Detroit was one of those teams that people were high on them. They've always had a decent quarterback, decent offense, and stuff like that. So I think those two teams are kind of ones to look out for this week as well. Heading back to last season, even though the San Francisco 49ers were a team that ever since Jimmy G came on board, people were kind of overreacting, just on them all the time. And of course, he hadn't lost until last week, and the whole team kind of got beat up last week. So that's one of the most interesting games this week, I think, is the Lions at 49ers, simply because 49ers are one of those teams that people were on since probably the last 5 games of last season, and they got a whole lot of respect going into Minnesota, even though that's a heck of a tough place to play. And of course, Detroit was supposed to steamroll the Jets, and they got absolutely crushed. So this is absolutely one of the more intriguing games of the week, Cam.
Yeah, absolutely. As you take a look on your screen here, the 49ers are the favorite at home. They're playing in Santa Clara. They're 6-point favorites in this game. Let's talk a little bit more about these 49ers here. Obviously a team that generated a lot of hype going into the regular season. Bit of a disappointment against Minnesota, albeit the Vikings are a fantastic team. The Lions just got embarrassed at home against the youngest rookie quarterback ever in a starting capacity. So there's almost an element of unknown about the Lions here. Meanwhile, with the 49ers as 6-point favorites for a team that did not perform well last season, it's almost an interesting, almost baiting type of line there where you're tempted to go with Detroit.
Yeah, you think like if Detroit had shown up first week of the season, what would this line be? A heck of a lot lower, I'm sure. And we kind of, as bookmakers, we're throwing numbers out there. We've got, we come up with a number by looking at, several different power numbers and stuff like that.
Yep.
And come up with these figures. And, this is one of those games where you're looking at 5.5 is where we open up, and we're at 6 right now. So it's like we don't often get it bang on, but this is one of those games where we really did get it right. Looking at my bet count now, I'm looking at the actual individual number of bets I've taken on both these teams, and it's almost 3-1 favoring San Francisco. So this might be a case where you are getting an overreaction to how poorly Detroit played last week, and there's already been talk about some, the veterans not liking the head coach and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it was like week 1 for the new coach and stuff like that. So this is one of those games that just kind of look out for, I would say, in terms of a fan perspective. The line right now, as we're speaking, again, is San Francisco -6. Again, the actual number of bets I've taken 3 times in favor of the 49ers. So that indicates that we're getting a lot of public money on the Niners and not sharp money on either side. If this number does creep up to 6.5 and you see it jump back down to 6, you know that it was sharp money that drove that number.
And of course, you guys out there can bet on this game and so much more. Chatsports.com/bet is the way to go. Use our promo code LIVE120 for that 120% deposit bonus. $100 in, $120 for free, $220 to play with there on BetDSI. They are fantastic for all the bets out there in college football as well, so much more. Let's talk about another game here, Brent. Denver and Oakland. The Raiders, a team with a lot of promise this season. Chucky is in town, a lot of hype around this team, and they disappointed big time against the Los Angeles Rams on Monday Night Football. Meanwhile, Denver, 6.5 favorites here. They performed pretty well in Week 1 against the Seattle Seahawks. Where are you seeing the action in this game here?
Yeah, it's interesting that matchup as well. You touch on this one. I do have, almost twice as many bets on Denver, and again, it's a case where public and bettors will certainly, they'll fade you real quick in games where you don't look very good. Now, I mean, the line, especially with last week, the Rams and the Raiders. I mean, that line opened like around 2.5 and closed. I mean, it went as high as 6.5. So it's just like an onslaught of money on the Rams. Of course, the sharp money we touched on last week on the show came on the Rams like -4. So it was sharp money early on that, and then public kind of, came on as well. So we've got a lot of money going Denver's way. And it's interesting, too, because Denver is one of those teams that I think a lot of fans are trying to figure out as well in terms of the quarterback change they made. And they've always had a stout defense and such. But last week, too, I mean, even against Seattle, it's like, really, how good is Seattle? We don't really know because they've made so many changes as well. But, one of the things with Gruden back there, it's really quite interesting that, I mean, right off the bat, he's calling out Carr for not making throws and stuff like that. That's not the type of thing you usually hear from a head coach, especially, a guy taking over a new team. But he was pretty rough in terms of calling out Carr, not throwing the ball downfield enough and kind of not directly blaming the loss on Carr, but it's interesting, this line again. We kind of got this one right in terms of the home field advantage with Denver. It's usually worth 3, maybe a little higher than 3 points, hosting Oakland, and again Denver's off that win against Seattle, so we open up at 6 and we're at 6.5 right now, so just very slight movement on the point spread, so we got that one right. And like I said, the betting count so far is about 2-1 favoring Denver, so I don't have sharp money on either side of that game, just the public favoring Denver right now, and they're already turning their backs on the Raiders, it seems.
Unbelievable stuff that can happen after 1 week, and the reactions that can happen as well. How about Washington and Indianapolis? And really, let's talk about where this sharp money is. Seems like Washington and Indy is a tempting one.
Yeah, no, I mean, Washington, it's funny with the quarterback Smith there. He kind of gets, doesn't get a whole lot of respect and never really has. He's taken over for Cousins and stuff like that. And Cousins, too, is like, how much was Cousins' success a product of the system? And we're going to find out. And I think Alex Smith is going to be, a decent quarterback for them. Most interesting for this number for me is that it has gone from about 4.5 and 5 up to 6 where we are right now. But when I was talking earlier about the actual wager count number of bets I've taken twice as many bets on the Colts, which I find interesting because we've kind of been waiting to see what the Andrew Luck factor will be. Right. Not so much, in the actual outcome of games, but in terms of bettors. And Luck did get support last week when they were at home to Cincinnati, and they're getting support, like I said, almost 2-1, twice as many individual bets on the Colts. And I've got sharp money the other way on Washington at home. That's why the number's gone from 5 to 6, despite having more bets the other way. Now, the reason for that is that usually the sharp guys are betting your max limit, so they'll bet 3,000-5,000 early in the week, where your smaller bettors are betting 100, a couple hundred per play. So the sharp money will drive that number up. But I always look for spots in terms of like booking and risk management. You're always welcome a spot where you've got sharp money, in this case Washington, going against public money in this case, which would be the Colts.
Redskins coming off a victory there against the Arizona Cardinals on the road. Meanwhile, Atlanta and Carolina here. We're looking at the money line in this game here, Brent, and injuries obviously are the storyline in this one, particularly with Carolina. 3 of their starting offensive linemen out in this game. That matters.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously a factor. And we're also looking at from the Falcons' point of view, it looks like they're going to be without their running back, Freeman, but I mean, they've got a pretty good 1-2 punch, and I don't think they're really going to miss a beat. The interesting here, of course, in the sharp money that we're talking about, and sharp guys, they'll find value wherever it is. I mean, sometimes it's going to be in a point spread, sometimes it's going to be a total, sometimes it's going to be a money line. And I did take sharp money on this game with the Falcons at home here. The money line where the sharp money came in was -195, so it's taken really dramatic, just slow ticks up from that -195 where the sharp money came in. Where yesterday, I believe the number was around 250, 245. We're all the way up to like 265 and 270 now. So that's a big difference in terms of the price you have to pay for something here. And again, it's kind of like you look at these things almost like stocks or assets and something like that. Now the sharp money came in -195, and we're all the way up to like 265 and 270. Now, one thing that I always kind of like, people in terms of educating bettors and stuff like that is to look at is, what your kind of break-even point is at certain numbers. Now, when you're laying -195, as the sharp money did, their break-even point was a 66% right there. Now your number is all the way up to 265 and 270. Now minus 270, your break-even point is now 73%. So
Right.
I think, learning the value of numbers and also, what a break-even point is on a money line is really key for, public bettors. Just kind of, get a basic knowledge of these numbers and say, well, minus 195 or 260, what difference does it make if they win the game? But it does make a difference if you're looking at the long term.
All right, folks. Well, you can bet like Brent and I at BetDSI. Chatsports.com/bet is the way to go. Use that promo code LIVE120 for that special 120% deposit bonus, folks. That is free money. You got to love it. Brent, appreciate the time, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.